This is the mock-up demonstration. The first thing that we're going to start off with is opening up our mock-up zip file. And what I'd like for us to start with is working on our book mock-up. So we're going to open up our mock-up of images, and I'm going to go to my book mock-up file, and I'm going to open my PSD. So let's open that up in Photoshop. Once we have that in Photoshop, we can kind of inspect the layers on the right panel and look at the different layers they have. We can see that they added contrast, there's highlights, there's the cover, we can see the left page, the right page. What we're going to do is set up our JPEGs that we export from InDesign of each page, and what we're going to do is we're going to place them onto this book. And we're going to do the left page first, and then we'll do the right page. So let's open our left page. What I'd like for us to do is double click on the left page, and you can see that it's made a smart object. And then what this smart object does is it allows you to place the image in a specific clipping. So that should be what our book mockup looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our image here. Now you can open the file and drag it in, and that's what I'm going to do. So let's go to our final portfolio, and I'm going to grab my left side of my image here, and I'm going to drag it into this file. Now we can see that it doesn't fit in quite perfectly, so I'm going to drag my box out just to get it fit just right. I'm going to hit return. Now we can see that it's a smart object, and that's okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to delete this layer right here. Just throw it in the garbage here. And what we're going to do is save. So I'm going to hit Command S, and I'm going to X out of this. And you should see your book page laid in that spot of the attached smart object. Now I noticed that my smart object is a little off right here. Are you guys seeing that? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit transform. Now you can either go to edit and hit transform there, or you can hit Command T. And I'm going to hit Command T. And what I'm going to do is hit my little graph here, and I'm going to adjust this. You can see that the original setup wasn't just precisely fit onto that page. And so I'm going to fit it right there. And you can see it balancing out. Now, notice the page right here kind of curves up that way. You know, you can adjust that by just clicking on the graph and kind of balancing things out. We can actually grab this little thing right here, kind of grab things out, balance them out. And that looks pretty good to me. And it's just kind of a little balancing act here. And then I hit return. And that should be my general layout of my left page. Now let's go to our right page and add our right page. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to double click on it, and it should have our text. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to our portfolio and drag our other JPEG on there, which should be the other side. And I'm going to drag and drop it. And again, I need to drag my image to fit just right. And I'm going to delete that background layer. And I'm going to save this PSB that is linked. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to X out of it. And your book should look pretty well finished here. Now I'm noticing that the edge here, I see a little bit of the bleed mark kind of coming in. So you can adjust that again with your Command T or your transform. And we can take that little layer out and kind of move things out ever so slightly, and we can hit return. Again, I noticed that at the bottom here, the curves aren't fitting that well, so you might want to again go to your transform, Command T, and adjust that arc to fit just right. And that should give us a better look of what our final should look like. All right, and when you're done, what I'd like for each student to do is to save it to our desktop. And I'm going to go to File, Save a Copy, and I'm going to save it to your computer, and I'm going to save it to my desktop. And I'm going to save it as a JPEG, and that way we can compress it. You can change the file size if you want it to be a little smaller, and then I hit OK. And that should be it. That should be our recipe layout mockup. All right, so I'm not going to save that. PSD, and you guys can preview the final. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our poster to the bus shelter. And what I'd like for us to do is to open up our outdoor bus shelter mockup blank, which we will find in our mockup images. And we can go to our bus mockup and then open our blank PSD. Now you can see I have the reflection set up in there for you. I also have a gradient set up in there. That way we can see the different layers and how they affect the image. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to place our image into our file, and we're going to go to our final portfolio. And what we can do is we can drag and drop it. Now you have to remember that our layers are set on top, so we can take those off here on the right side. Just take them off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit our Command T or Control T, and we are going to constrain the proportions a little bit so that it fits the general size of this marquee. And make sure that the largest size fits. Next step we're going to do is we're going to go to our Edit panel up at the top, and we're going to go to Transform and to hit Perspective. What we're going to do is we're going to click and drag down so that we get the general perspective of this document. And it's kind of tricky, might move up and down a little bit, but that's looking pretty good to me. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit Return. Now the scale is skewed. As things move further away in perspective, they get smaller. So this side will be smaller and this side will be larger. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of smush this side in. We're going to hit our Command T, but this time we're going to hold our Shift key. We're going to kind of pull it in and just make sure that we're good and fit snugly into our frame. And we should hit Return. It's looking pretty good to me. And then we can put our layers back on top of the reflection and also the highlight. If you do not like how bright the highlight is right here, we can go to our opacity and kind of adjust that a little bit, make it a little bit more clear, but that's up to you. And that should be it for this document. So what I'd like for us to do here before we finalize this, now you can save your PSD in layers, but for my purpose, I just want us to save it as a copy, and I want to save it on our computer. And we're going to save it as a JPEG to be compressed. Okay, and we're going to call this poster bus shelter mockup, and we can take the blank off and we can save it. And that's a good size, 1 megabyte. All right, and this one is now finished. And we don't need to save that. If you want to save your PSD with layers, you can. If you want to alter it again, I don't need to, so I'm not going to save it. So I'm not going to save. But what we can do is we can see our poster. And I accidentally saved it to our bus mockup folder. I meant to save it to our desktop. And you can kind of see what it looks like here, and I'll double click so we can preview what it looks like. Looks pretty good. All right. Last thing that we're going to do is we are going to put our label onto our jar. Now there's 2 different jars in your mockup images, and we can go look at those together. Go to our mockup images. You can go to the jar mockup, kind of inspect what these look like. This is just a blank one. This is kind of more for a basic layout, and this one's for a little bit more of a complicated layout. It's up to you which one you decide to use. All right, So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up our 10 container mockup PSD. And you can see it set up the guides. It also has all of the parts. And again, it has the image. And what we're going to do is do the same thing that we did on the book layout design. And we're going to double click on the layer that shows the actual layout. Except on this one, I'm going to exchange it for this graphic burger version, and I'm going to put my version of the label. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to my final portfolio, and we're going to grab the image that I made. So let's find the image. It's called 10 label PDF, and I drag and drop it in there, and it's going to ask me to convert it to a smart object, and I go okay. And then since it is a PDF, it should scale pretty well. I'm going to hold, you don't need to hold your shift key for this one. You can just kind of drag out. Now notice that the image is a little different in proportion. That is okay. I'm okay with it being a little off, as long as I get that pattern on there. And make sure that it's good and centered. This is going to make sure that everything is contained on your document. I also feel like you should leave a little bit of bleed just to make sure it fits within that document perfectly. All right, this is looking pretty good to me. And what we're going to do, like we did with the book layout design, is that we're going to delete our placeholder image, and we can go throw that in the garbage. And what we're going to do is we're going to save our smart object to our PSB. And once I hit Command S or Control S, I can X out of that, and you can see I have my design all set up. Now, we don't need to see our guides on there, and this is how our final should look. So what I'd like for us to do now is go to File, Save a Copy, and we're going to save it onto our computer, and we're going to save it as a JPEG. And we are going to save it to our desktop, and hit save and hit OK. You can see it lands right here on our desktop. And really that's it for this demonstration, just kind of basically showing you how to use these mock-up templates and how to use smart objects and to place them on your files. If you want to look at the object right here, we can kind of open up the JPEG and see how it looks. I hope this helps out, and good luck with your layouts.